From PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs
and WETA Wellbeings.
This is On Our Minds
With Matt
and Faiza,
a podcast about teenagers and mental health, because life is hard.
And we're all going through something, and hearing stories about what other teens are going through and how they're getting better, it helps. Today, we're going to be discussing pressure and competition. Academic pressure, athletics, and performance. We'll talk about the fear of failure and why we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. If you or someone you know needs help, we have a list of resources at studentreportinglabs.org/mental health resources. Hey Matt!
Hey Faiza! So today we're going to be talking about pressure. I was wondering, when do you feel like you've been under the most pressure, and is there a time that comes to mind?
Yeah, so personally, I think I feel the most pressure when it comes to academics. I know for a lot of us, AP season just ended, so I've been trying to recollect myself and stuff like that, but it has really been a lot of pressure just trying to study for APs, and then you also have classwork for other classes, so yeah, it's a lot. How about you?
I agree. I definitely think the most pressure does come from academics. I know we both did APs and that's over, so I'm really happy about that. That pressure's definitely been lifted off. I know my shoulders. I hope they're off your shoulders at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Though now we have finals, it feels like there's always something. We have some really good stories today about how people hold up under pressure. First, Jeremiah, a student from Leander, Texas, interviewed Zaila Avant-Garde, the first African-American National Spelling Bee winner and two-time Guinness World Record holder for her basketball dribbling and juggling abilities.
Wow, that's really incredible. I think she was only 13 when she accomplished that, right?
Yup, that's right. And she was also named Sports Kid of the Year in 2021 by Sports Illustrated for Kids. Well, let's take a listen.
Being the first African-American winner for the National Spelling Bee, you kind of showed a whole group of people that anyone could be capable of winning stuff like that, right? And how does it feel just inspiring others in that way?
One of my motivating principles is to try to break boundaries and break the glass ceiling and stuff, and show that people beyond the typical people who are viewed as being the ones who can achieve something, that make other people know that they can do it too. I personally have faced multiple instances of discrimination against, whether it's because of the color of my skin or the way my hair looks or just the fact that I'm a girl. I definitely always want to be a motivator for young girls like me.
Yeah, a lot of people would probably define you as courageous. How should people encourage themselves to make a difference like you?
The general idea to encourage yourself is just remind yourself. Even that boy or someone comes up to you and says that you're a girl, you shouldn't be doing this. You're a girl, you can't do this. To just remind yourself that if you can do it, I can do it. And that's one of my mottos personally, is that if you can do it, I can do it. Whether or not somebody else tells me I can't do it.
I know that physically you have to juggle a lot, but also mentally you have to juggle a lot. And how do you time manage?
If you tell yourself, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I have this, I have that, I have this, it's going to feel a lot worse than if you just take it bit by bit. And then you realize, hey, I have all this stuff to do, but it's all handled now. So I think that's how I time manage, is just to take it bit by bit instead of just trying to swallow it whole.
How do you approach your mental health? What are the ways in which you help yourself?
Right now, luckily, I'm not struggling much at all with the type of teenage angst, so to speak, and I mean teenage angst not in the way parents say it, I mean in a real way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes on my basketball teams, I see other kids really struggling with that. Sometimes I think, from at least my personal experience with teenagers who are struggling, they just they get all caught up. They have AP courses and school is coming and they're trying to be on the sports team, and it's just maybe something's wrong with their home life, and it's all just coming together into this perfect storm that's just swallowing them up. And I kind of just try to take things bit by bit to avoid that.
What are some of the biggest goals that you have lined up for yourself?
My short-term goals is to learn piano and learn Spanish. My long-term goals is I want to play college basketball at Harvard and then go to the WNBA, maybe an NBA head coach, and then possibly work for NASA.
Do you sometimes feel like you're put into a box when people are only knowing you as the spelling bee winner or the dribble girl or anything like that? Like, do you feel like at some point you want people to just know you as like this like really cool person who can do all these things and not like do you feel like you're put into a box?
Most people typically are more interested in my basketball skills and stuff and what I do there, which is completely understandable since it's a sport, a very popular sport. And then there's a group of people who are like you said, she's the spelling girl, she won the spelling bee. Sometimes I wish that would kind of come together into more of a whole person, and that's kind of what I feel like I'm put into a box, but it's a pretty comfy box, so it's
That's
okay.
cool. Is there anything that you wish people knew more about you?
The only thing I think is my bit to math. It's something that I do that is a bit in the background with how that basically works. Is like I could do like two-digit numbers times two-digit numbers. And I could do it really fast.
Can I ask you a mental math question?
Go for it.
52 times 73.
52 times 73. 3,786.
Oh my, that's really dope. That's cool. That's cool. Well, hopefully, as the years go by, people will start to acknowledge that talent that you have a little more. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I like
Thank
getting
you.
to talk to you.
Zaila seems really cool. I also love how she talked about the importance of breaking things down bit by bit. I think a lot of times we get caught up into trying to cram stuff into everything, just like how she said with people with their AP courses or just taking on a lot of responsibilities without kind of consideration of the future and how your mental health will be affected by it.
Even though we think we might be being productive, we're actually just taking away from our own mental health, which, of course, no one would want that. Next up, our conversation with On Our Mind student correspondent Deesha. We try to figure out where the expectation to perform and achieve comes from. Is it from our parents, our teachers, ourselves? It's hard to figure out.
I think the competitive atmosphere is like built into us. They call us gifted students, right? Like in elementary school, you take this test, you put into this gifted program, and then you get put in like these high school credit classes while you're in middle school, and then they push you to take AP classes. And now you have like this mindset of if I don't do more, I'm falling behind. And I know like that's how I felt. It's like this constant like competitiveness. And it's like my parents wouldn't care less if I took one less AP, but like I would care. Like it would hurt my ego. And like that sounds so bad to say, but it's true. It's like we're so obsessed with pushing ourselves. And I don't know why.
I think for me personally, it's both the competitive atmosphere and I guess pressure from my parents that has derived from, I guess, my childhood, but they're not as pressuring now, but I think I've kind of implemented it from both the school system and from my parents. And I found myself in situations where like I get like B's on my test and it's the worst. Like that's gonna be the worst week for me. Now in junior year, it's like I'm constantly like failing or I'm constantly getting like lower grades than I expect. And it's really taking a toll. So I don't know. I've kind of shifted into a more like if it happens, it happens. Like I can't really change the past. So that's why I pressure myself to do better for the future.
I genuinely don't really know where the pressure comes from because I think that there's not necessarily like one source in my life. I think my parents don't necessarily care that much about like me getting straight A's, and I don't put that much pressure on myself either. But I actually know I lied. I think it's mostly myself because like for example, in like my school for art electives, which we have to do six every like for six over our 4 years, they're just like really easy classes and you're meant to just get an A and then like very easy. So I kind of ended up slacking off in this one class, which is just like digital photography, and I have a B in that right now. And like it makes me really upset to see my grade book, and it's just like I feel like I'm letting myself down in that scenario. So I guess the pressure does come more from myself, but then again, I think that the pressure coming from myself is actually just like pressure from all these other sources that I then make my own problem. So I'm not really sure.
I agree with that perspective. And I was really struggling in AP Bio, and I like went to my counselor and I just cried, right? And I was like, I don't know what to do. And she looked me in the eye and said, Deesha, it's okay to get a B. And I didn't know how to take that. Like I genuinely didn't know how to take that. Like I got a B in the class. It is what it is, right? But like I shouldn't have felt that way. I should have like, I don't know. It was just really difficult. And that sounds so like that makes it like I hate that I'm like that, but I feel like that's how I've been like forever.
I have this quota of like 2 Bs, that's it. And I've already met that quota from virtual learning. So right now I'm trying to pressure myself to get all A's this year, but I know that in the long run, will it really matter? No. But right now it does matter. Looking forward, I think I need to stop limiting myself to like in the moment, but like look in the future.
I think a lot of us put a lot of our self-worth into academic validation. And I think that ties back to just like our perspectives on like how we've grown up. I know like a lot of times kids who are like in these hard classes, like they're so used to getting good grades, like you kind of become confined to like that ideology, like, oh, I have to meet this like expectation I hold for myself. I have a hate and love relationship with academic validation at this point.
Yeah, same.
For me with college, I think not necessarily because like I necessarily am attracted to any particular Ivy League, but I feel there's just this idea that's like, oh, like you want to go to Ivy Leagues because it's like the best schools, blah blah blah. And I feel like it would be really frustrating for me because I didn't necessarily want to go to a particular school, but like I would take the SAT and then I would look up, oh, average SAT score for this school, and then it doesn't match up, and then it just creates this sense of like frustration. But I think that like my mental health has improved so much over the last just like a month and a half, because I kind of had this realization at one point that's like I don't know if going to an Ivy League is necessarily like for me. And I think that I just want to find a school that I'll feel comfortable in, where it's academically challenging, but a school that I can still have fun in, but that it's going to like, I'll still have career opportunities. So I think that me shifting from like, oh, I need to be like the best or the best and go to the best possible school, and just shifting my mentality to, I really want to go to a college that works for me, that I'm comfortable with overall, has just improved my mental health so much. So I feel so much happier now with like education in general and stuff like that.
As teens, like as Gen Z, we have so many ambitions, we have so many goals, but I think sometimes we forget like what our true passion is. I find so many of my friends who just are doing things for college now, right? They're not doing it because they genuinely enjoy them. It's draining to them. Like the things you do outside of school should like feel fulfilling. I know like when I did research for this podcast, I love it so much. And like I think it's really important to like go back to like find things you really enjoy, because then you're not so caught up on, oh, am I going to get into this school? Because you realize like what you've done has like been fulfilling. It's helped you figure out like who you want to be, and you can reach any like career goal no matter where you go, or at least that's what my counselor says. So taking your word on that.
My mom, she literally said to me yesterday, you seem so much happier now that you're doing this podcast. And I'm like, that's so true. Because I've genuinely like found something that I'm truly interested in beyond just like academic validation. So I think finding that hobby, even though it's hard, you can find it and it'll help. It'll help.
So we ended our conversation together talking about hobbies, and I think it's interesting how like even though we go into these hobbies looking for fun, they can inadvertently turn into something that's stressful. And one example I have of that is that this April I had a DECA competition, which is basically this business competition that we have, and we compete in Georgia. And it was really fun. I had a really good time. I enjoyed my experience. But also, we went to this stadium at the end of the time to get our awards. And it's like thousands of people. And you look around and it's like all these people are competing to get on stage and win that award. So even though I love my time, there's still that stress factor of like, there are so many different people here competing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Sometimes your relationship with extracurriculars that are supposed to be your hobbies can turn toxic. Our next story is from Lauren from Tampa, Florida. She's a competitive dancer, and as a competitive dancer, she has a lot of experience with high stake environments and also its negative effects. Lauren shares a bit of her story and teaches us some of her favorite tips from what she calls her mental health toolbox. Let's take a listen.
My name is Lauren, and I've been dancing almost as long as I could walk, doing so competitively since the 3rd grade. And during that time, I've probably done every style under the sun, from ballet to ballroom. As a competition dancer, you face a lot of rejection and disappointment that accompanies your success. In my almost 14 years of dancing, I've acquired some useful tools that I put in what I call my mental health toolbox, and that is what I'm here to share with you today. Number 1, remember that you are unique. A dancer's goal is to bring emotions out of people and tell a story. Unlike other artists, our bodies are our medium. This is the reason why I feel dancers can get really hard on themselves and their bodies. I used to feel like I had to hide all of my quirks in order to look and perform like the other dancers around me. But through lots of work and self-reflection, I've realized that I'm always going to have the body I was born with. I stopped trying to change my body to fit the moves and started to make the moves work for my body. So in rehearsal, for example, when I perform in a group, the goal is to look in unison. I no longer think, how do I do the moves like the person next to me? I now think, what do I have to do to achieve the goal of being together? It is always good to learn from other dancers when it comes to things like technique and style. But just remember, everyone's body is unique, so don't get caught up in comparing yourself to others. Number 2, understand what you need to be successful. I choose to dance and spend my time doing what I love. But in the everyday routine of life, it can be very easy to lose sight of that passion. It can be hard to find the motivation to wake up and go to those early morning rehearsals, attend class when you're sore, or get started on that homework you have to do in the late hours of the night. One thing that I find myself saying a lot is that passion isn't always burning, and that you can't rely on passion alone to motivate you to do the things that you want to do. It is a much more reliable tactic to have set routines that you can discipline yourself to follow. Routines you can trust to check all the boxes you need to each day. When something doesn't work out, it is important to understand why it didn't. I suggest methods like journaling or talking to someone you trust to really figure out what happened. And then from there, you can make revisions to your plan and try again. This is when the environment that you're in really matters. It's always been my friends who have given me the motivation to pick myself up and go. When I hear my teammates cheer me on in class, wish me good luck before I take the stage, or when they remember to not tell me to break a leg, I have the support I need to push through the hard moments. Because it has always been my friends that have kept me going when all else has failed within myself. And finally, number 3, change your perspective on success and failure. Rejection in any way can be hard. For example, as a dancer, this can look like not making it through the next round of an audition, or not getting the placement you want in a group dance. Failure can be a horrible feeling, and one that your mind can use and twist to fuel your own negative thoughts and insecurities. I've learned that I can actually befriend failure. The ways I've learned to do so is by changing my perspective on what it truly means to fail. First, ask yourself why you feel you failed. Have you set an expectation for yourself that you didn't meet? Or have you had expectations put on yourself by the people around you? Maybe you've observed other people's goals and felt like you needed to adopt them yourself. Dissecting your goals and really understanding how you think about failure will help you gain a healthy relationship with it. When I started treating my failure as an opportunity to learn, I actually started succeeding more. All things considered, I hope you've taken something valuable away from today's tips, and that you try out some of the tools I've shown you from my own personal mental health toolbox. But don't get discouraged if what I mentioned doesn't work for you. Remember, everyone is unique.
One thing that Lauren said that really resonated with me was when she talked about how she started treating failure as this opportunity to learn, and then once she did that, she was able to actually start succeeding more. And that made me think about, again, DECA, but I remember in freshman year when we were all starting out, we did these role plays, which is you speak to a judge about a business topic and you get graded on it basically. And I remember I felt so confident going into it, so I didn't really study. And then all my friends, they ended up getting awards for that, and I actually was one of the only ones who didn't. And I remember I was feeling so down about myself. I was like, wow, maybe I don't really know anything. But then I was just thinking about it, like reflecting on it, and I didn't really study. I didn't really put in the effort. I had the knowledge. I just needed to improve myself. So the next year I did it again. I actually studied. I put in the time for it, and I actually ended up getting first place in states, which like I'm super proud of that. So I think that's definitely just a perfect example of how just because you fail at something, it doesn't mean that like it's done. It just means you have to learn from that and then turn it into a success story. How about you, Faiza?
Oftentimes we can get into this hole where we just doubt ourselves and try to isolate ourselves from everything once we fail, but really learning from those experiences and honestly talking about it with other people truly allows you to learn from your mistakes and grow from there.
Next week is all about eating disorders. We'll hear some powerful stories and conversations from students, plus Ro Mitchell, a British YouTuber and social media influencer, about her experience with anorexia, and tips on how to recover.
If you're enjoying this podcast or if it's helped you in any way, we have a few requests. First, please share this podcast with people in your life. Friends, parents, teachers, anyone who's a teen, or anyone who has a teenager in their life. Also, write a review. We'd love to hear from you.
We really do want to hear from you. Growing our audience helps make production possible, and also can help save lives by giving teens the tools and courage to speak up about what they're going through.
Today's stories were produced by Jeremiah from Rouse High School in Leander, Texas.
And Lauren from Sickles High School in Tampa, Florida.
This episode was produced by production assistant Jaylah Moore-Ross with help from Briget Ganske.
Executive producer Leah Clapman and the rest of the student reporting lab staff.
Once again, if you or someone you know needs help, we have a list of resources at studentreportinglabs.org/mental health resources.
And tell your friends about us. Spread the word. The more people who know about mental health, the better.